Hi everybody, I'm Arby.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jeff.
And this is Barstool Brainstorming, where you join us as we hang out, share some beers, and talk some shit about magic and a little bit about life. These are things we used to do before the pandemic, so we want to keep it going, you know. You'll notice that we're all together, trying to keep a little bit of distance, but that's because, you know, the Canadian government, they lifted some regulations, so here we are. And without further ado, what are you drinking, boys?
Oh, me first. I guess I'm on this end of the table. Sorry. I am having Mill Street. This is not the first time Mill Street's been featured on this podcast, but it's an organic Kombucha Radler. So
nice. A lot of different words that I don't know.
Well, I'm going to have a cider, which I'm going to have a drink this time compared to last time. It's going to be a Brickworks Batch 1904 apple cider.
I just want to say that I'm so happy you're drinking. I feel like you are 10 times hotter when you drink.
Yeah.
Isn't it the other way around? When you're drinking, I'm supposed to get hotter?
I don't know. It just works differently with you, my dude.
The reverse goggles.
Interesting.
And for me, I'm going to have a little IPA day. This is called Born This Way IPA. I just feel with all this social turmoil going on, I just wanted to, you know, have a drink to celebrate the fact that you're just born the way that you are, you know, and we should all respect that. Boys, let's crack them open.
Oh, yeah. My favorite part.
The cracking, not the drinking.
The starting of drinking. Ooh. This is really good.
Oh, well, I'm a fan of the message, not so much the beer, to be honest with you. Don't at me. Don't at me.
This is a turmeric flavor. I didn't realize. I was like, oh my gosh, this tastes like my mom's cooking.
It's just apple cider. Excellent.
Delicious.
Awesome. Now I'm a little bit jealous because I'm going to cringe to the rest of this beer. All right, so before we even talk about anything, I got a surprise question for you guys. Which card from M21 that has been spoiled is getting your hype train chugging along?
I've been chugging.
Would you like to start, Jeff?
But yeah, sure. I'll go first. I have two. One is a typical answer that everyone already expects from me, and I'm going to say it anyway because I have the platform.
Nice.
Discontinuity. 6 mana, end the turn. Instant speed. So you can cast it on your opponent's turn to just in their upkeep, so they don't even get a draw step or whatever. You can do it in combat. You can do it so their creatures are tapped, kind of like a little cryptic command. You can do it. Yeah. When they have a spell in the stack and it exiles the spell, it exiles everything on the stack. But this card already exists in Time Stop, which is on my radar already.
We know, Jeff.
But the cool thing about this card is it discounts for 4 mana down to 2 mana if you cast it on your own turn.
Yeah.
So if your opponent is casting a spell on your turn, you want to counter it. If they're trying to go off, let's say they're a combo deck or something at the end of your turn,
right? You
can just end the turn. You can negate any negative effects that happen at the end of your turn. So for example, Goryo's Vengeance. So super cool card.
Yeah.
Second card, which is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, is Conspicuous Snoop. I think it's called.
Oh, Dennis the Menace.
Yeah. It's the new red goblin, and what this card does is it allows you to play with the top card of your library revealed. So it's kind of like, seems like it has some green in it there.
Yeah.
But you get to cast it if it's you get to
tap. No, you get to activate the ability.
Yeah, you get to activate the ability.
I believe you also get to cast goblins off the top.
I don't think so. I mean, it just got spoiled, but let's go with it.
Okay. So anyways, but it also gets all the abilities from that card on top of your library. So it is like basically like a new combo deck.
Yeah, it reminds me of Soul Flayer, the one that gets all the abilities from your graveyard, but now it's the card top of your deck, right?
Yeah. When I say red combo deck, you think Soul Flayer. Fantastic.
Well, you know, I'm just good at Magic. What can I say?
Well, I know there's a lot of sensitive viewers, but I think you can say the two word card, Splinter Twin.
No, gracias.
It is a red card.
I know there's some viewers that are going to get triggered just by hearing that. Too soon. I
think. Yeah, it's been 5 years.
But basically, what you do is there's a card, Bogard Harbinger, I think it's called. I don't know. It's a 3 mana goblin, and it can put any goblin on top of your library. So you go turn 2 Snoop, turn 3 that. You put Kikijiki on top of your library.
You make
infinite Snoops.
Oh man.
And also, every time you make a Snoop, you have to make a Snoop Dogg reference. It's actually in the flavor text.
Foshizi, my
Exactly. You just gotta drop it like it's hot, and then boom. Once you make infinite of them, and you're out of Snoop Dogg references, Then you copy the other guy that puts another, the one that puts a goblin on top.
Yeah.
And then you put something like Siege Gang Lieutenant or something like that.
Yeah, and just finish them off. Yeah, that's sick.
I've already brewed a few decks with that, so I'm super excited.
Already?
Honestly, I can't wait.
This guy already started.
I can't wait. And I'm going to call that card Dennis the Menace. Just because, like, he's got his nose pressed up against the glass all the time. And man, that card might be annoying, to be honest.
I think it's going to be good, for sure.
All right, what's got your aggro freight train hauling?
Since we're doing 2 cards, I'm going to go with number 1, my modern card, which is Container Priest. I can't wait to play that with Eldrazi Displacer. Cannot wait to just blink everything and then it just doesn't come back.
Yeah. It's
2
drops for life,
time.
baby.
It's going to be a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to become a deck where you go, like, turn 1, Spirit Guide into, like, make more mana, Chalice on 1 or Chalice on 2, and then just, the Eldrazi Displacer deck.
Right.
With Container Priest.
Yeah.
Is there... Okay, wait, sorry.
It's like the Legacy deck.
Yeah. So, like, obviously this card has Flash, which is even more broken. So if you go turn 1 Vial...
You don't play Vial anymore.
You don't play Vial anymore?
No, you just play Chalice.
Yeah, you're just literally playing a Hate Bears deck.
You're going turn 1 Chalice, turn 2 Priest, or a Displacer.
I like it. So, you get basically, you go, like, end step, you can go Container Priest, untap, like, Flicker Wisp or something.
Well, probably. Yeah, if you can Flicker Wisp one of those things, yeah.
Yeah, they just don't see it coming, that's hot.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun time. And the second one is a standard green card, which I forgot the name of again because it's so annoying to say.
Wait, let me guess. Is it 5 mana do everything
in the game? 5 mana do everything. It's gar something.
Gargagala, yeah, that's the one.
Garganoth, guys.
That card
Come on, oh my god.
That card is...
My co-hosts are so unprepared for this.
That
card started the spoilers?
It's fucked up.
Yeah, it's crazy, that card. It has everything.
It is probably going into Modern.
Oh, it's 5 mana,
that's a bold claim.
Yeah, that's a hot take with a rusty rake, buddy.
I mean, Ponza.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Alright, you win.
Yeah, sure.
You can literally put anything in the Ponza.
Wait, does it protect itself as well? No, right?
Well, it attacks and block. Like, it has vigilance, so it's for attacking and blocking the triggers.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any hexproof or anything like that. It just has every offense ability and defense.
It only has everything else. Not.
Does it also draw cards?
It's not broken.
It draws cards. It draws cards or gains life or makes 3/3s.
And you can do all of them, right? No, you can do one.
No, it's
one. You have all the options.
But you can do it when you attack.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Like, so 2 green mana gets you? Like 3 colorless, 2 green mana, that's what you get?
And it's 6/6.
God damn.
Listen, green needs a little love.
Yeah, no, that's pretty crazy. For me, it's my homie, Will Ferry Smith. You know, he's Teferi's back, and his card is awesome. Like, the crazy thing about me is that this card basically has instant speed Planeswalker abilities, but the way that I understand it, and when I read it, it looks like you can activate it on your turn and your opponent's
That's
turn.
what it looks like, yeah.
Right? So that means that every turn you're getting a little bit more ahead of your opponent. Every turn, not every turn cycle, because traditionally Planeswalkers have been like that. And it looks like to me they're just kind of like breaking the rules of Planeswalkers, or breaking the design of Planeswalkers, right? Because, looting, which is the first ability, it's a form of getting ahead. Not in card advantage, but you fix your hand.
Yeah.
And then you get to do that every turn. Your opponent plays something, you're like, oh wow, this removal spell's not good anymore. Loot. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it seems really good. And then you can screw up their attacks because the second ability
it protects
phases
itself.
or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. For me, it looks like a real game changer. And I will probably play blue if I can, to be honest with you.
See a Jund, in comes Moist Jund.
Moist Jund.
Moist Jund.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
I actually really like that card, and at first when I read it, I was like, this is kind of whatever. Then I was brewing a deck that is like, it's a dredge deck, but instead of dredging creatures, you're dredging spells to Mystic Sanctuary, so it's actually a Miracles deck.
Right.
And I was thinking, Teferi is perfect for this deck.
Oh.
Because you want a way to loot, but also protect the board, and you get so much value out of it, so I'm super hyped for Teferi.
No, it's hot, and I feel like you can do a lot of stuff with it. Like, obviously, the first thing people think about is control, but like I said, you can activate this thing.
The ability
twice
is instant speed, right?
The abilities are instant speed.
Yeah.
It
So
doesn't
you
have
could,
flash
like,
itself.
Cast what's that guy's name? The green, blue, colorless. The new Eldrazi or whatever.
Oh, Euro?
Yeah, you can cast
I
Euro and
don't
then
know,
the trigger on the stack.
not everything
like
with 6/6 plus is Eldrazi.
But I mean,
might as well be.
But I mean, you can just like trigger all these ETBs.
Yeah.
Like, instead of sacking it, you could be like, alright, I'll draw 2, play 2 lands, gain 6 life.
What are you talking about? You can't target your own creature with that.
Can't you?
You know what? I don't know the rules, but the main thing is you can mess with the
can.
board, right?
Yeah.
The main thing is you can mess with the
Yeah.
board, and like I said, it's just a form of getting ahead, like twice a turn cycle basically. So I feel
Do you
like
think
it's
you lose
pretty
value
strong.
because it's an onboard trick?
No.
No,
You already
I mean,
gained the value from your turn.
right?
Right?
It's anyways. Like I just think since this is only the second episode, I'll refer to the last episode. We were talking about kind of like how design doesn't translate as in companion, right? This is an example of, I think they tried to design a planeswalker that looks like it manipulates time, and they did that by allowing you to cast on your opponent's turn the abilities and stuff. But it ends up just being, wow, this planeswalker is like uptick for the rest of the game, right?
Can you imagine in Commander? You're playing with like 5 people and you're just like, by the way, I'm ultimating by the time it comes back to me.
Oh shit!
I didn't even,
Oh my god!
I didn't even think about that. Oh my god!
Teferi's
It's gonna be
going
fun
off
as
in
hell.
Commander.
That's insane. This is like a commander card, and we're talking about it in like constructed, but forget about
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
and
those dirty
I really
characters.
want to do a Commander episode because Commander makes cards look different in your eyes when you play Commander with them, right?
Everything is
Yeah,
playable.
Everything changes. Yeah, exactly. And I really can't wait to get beat by it, to be honest with you.
You say that now.
That's true.
All right, so what do you guys want to actually talk about today?
Alright, well, my topic of choice will be bad beats. So we're going to talk about
baby!
our worst beats.
Mike, thank you so much because I get beat more than a Salvation Army drum. Let's go,
Wow.
let's go.
Well, I guess I'll start with my little story of my bad beat, which
Let's hear
was
it. Let's hear it.
during GB Vancouver. I think it was like 3 years ago now, over there. Yeah, about 3 years ago. It was against Infect. It wasn't really a bad beat. It was such a misplay that it felt horrible, and I wanted to die. So, my Infect opponent is tapped out, and I have a Ghost Cutter up, and I'm thinking, well, I could get rid of that Ink Moth or Blink Moth, right?
Ink Moth
Ink
is the
Moth,
one that
Ink Moth,
I keep
yeah.
confusing
don't
them.
disrespect.
I can just get rid of it now, but I could just wait until my opponent's turn so that I get the most efficiency out of it. So I decided to pass the turn, and then on my opponent's upkeep, I go, I'm gonna Ghost Cutter your land. My opponent goes, sir, hold on. I'll tap a green and activate it. I'll tap another green and I'll give it +2 in protection. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. That's cool.
I like how he said "sir." That's the best part of this.
Then my opponent just plays land, pump, and attack you for lethal.
I think if you call your opponent a dumbass in sanctioned event, you might get a warning. So that's why he said.
Probably.
Maybe, but he really meant dumbass, right?
But yeah, that was brutal because I was winning that match. Like, that match was mine if I just blew up the land on my turn.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty bad. What about you, Jeff?
Okay, so mine, I have a lot, just like Arby, but just like every millennial, I've sort of suppressed all bad emotions, and I just don't. It's like it doesn't exist in my head.
You looking for hateful comments or something, bro?
Bring it on! I can suppress so much shit in here.
Love reacts only, please.
But there was one that sticks at, and it'll follow me to the grave. So I think there's like suppression, and then when it gets to trauma levels, then you can't suppress it. So I was at a tournament, playing my bread and butter, blue-green taking turns.
Yeah.
Your bread and your butter changes every week.
Yeah, I know, it's true. But this is also before Uro, before Oko. This is when it was there wasn't a good Simic card in Magic.
Okay.
So this deck grinded super hard. I played Fog and Days Undoing, so it just went on forever.
Yeah.
So it was round 1, and I go to extra turns. So I gutted the deck completely. So it was like Snapcaster Mages, which is my usual win con, was now Jace's Prodigy, all this stuff. So I'm playing, and I'm thinking, I have Ink Moth Nexus in my deck, but I don't have 10 turns to kill him. Like we're just gonna go to a draw. So I'm going. I was like, all my win. I don't have enough turns to kill him with damage. So I go into the tank, go deep in the tank, and I have a Jace's Prodigy. Like, okay, I can uptick this until I can ultimate it. Like, this is the new strategy. I'm not rebuying time with this Jace.
That's pretty hot, though.
I'm trying to emblem this guy. So I'm going off. Everyone's watching because I'm like 30 minutes into extra turns. I'm going up. Finally ultimate this guy. It's turn 4. Cast enough spells, mill up my opponent completely. And like, I'm feeling so good. I feel like I got the crowd here. I feel like
everybody's watching.
Everyone's gonna buy out time warps now. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah.
So I go mill him out, throw my hands up, like, pass turn, just so happy with myself. Just in my head, I'm just like, yeah. So I go pass turn. He's like, that's the end of your turn? I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, it's your turn again. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, you cast like 8 time warps. You have them all stacked up. I was like, fuck. So it's turn 5. It goes back to my turn. And the what makes this a super bad beat is that time warp says target player takes an extra turn after this one. So I could have cast my last time warp targeting him to have Galaxy Brain.
You could have did it, man.
Yeah.
You could have had everybody watch you get off for like 30 minutes.
I know.
That's awesome.
So that game ended in a draw.
Okay, that's pretty bad. But I'm gonna raise both of you guys losing to a 0 land hand.
Well, it must have been Dredge, right?
It's always Dredge.
No, I got attacked to death.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Let me get into it. So to set the stage, me, Mike, and Christoph, we went down to Washington D.C. to play in a GP there, and at that time it was Aether Revolt Standard. And I can't believe that I'm going to talk about this, but it was Aether Revolt Standard, and around that time, I think that... Jack, come over here, buddy.
It's not even supernatural stamina.
It's not even supernatural stamina. This is Jack. Come here. All right, yeah, I need my help.
Your hound.
Okay, keep me calm, buddy. So basically, at Aether Revolt Standard, people were starting to realize that the Snake Counters deck was kind of shit, right? And I wanted to prove people wrong, so I at least wanted to make day 2 with it. So we get it to we're in the main event, we're playing, and I make it to the last round, but it's a win in. So it wasn't anything great. I needed to win to make it to day 2, just so I can show people, look, it's not shit, man. You can just bloat up your board and not lose.
You can lose the supernatural stamina.
If you're a god like me, you can day 2 with anything.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to game 3, and my opponent mulls down to 5. Okay, and I'm feeling pretty good. But then my opponent even takes a longer time to mulligan. So I'm like, okay, the only way he's tanking for a 5-card hand is if he has some good cards, but doesn't know if he can get there, right? So I was like, okay, I checked my hand. I'm like, this is pretty good because I have like 1 removal spell-ish, so I should be okay to build out my board, and then whatever he plays won't matter. So he keeps. I'm like, okay, let's go. We start playing, and he gets off to a good start. He plays Earthshaker Kendra, which allows you to get it back from the graveyard, which was like the best play you can play on 5 cards because you can play it later, right? Mm-hmm. So then he's like playing some cards, and then I'm playing my board, but he's like removing them. And I'm like, oh, I guess his hand was full of removal spells or something like that. Then during the middle of the game, I start flooding out. He slams Hazoret. And I'm like, oh,
Hazoret on a multi-5 is not bad.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, that's pretty rough. But I have Grasp of Darkness, the -4/-4 in my deck, right? So we keep playing, and we're like trading board position. My Sylvan Advocates get to 4/6 so they can block Hazoret and everything. And I'm like flooding out, and I cannot find this Grasp of Darkness. But we get to a board state where he needs a burn spell to win, and I need a removal spell to win. I don't get a removal spell. I get the 6/5 Sovereign artifact vehicle, Sky Sovereign, that deals 3 damage or whatever. But at this point, he has the Chandra on the other side of the field, right? So I really need to kill him with this thing. So the game basically got to a point where I just flooded out too much. He killed all of my threats with burn spells, and he needs to top deck a burn spell to win. He draws... No, so he basically top decks a burn spell, right? And then kills me with Hazoret's ability and stuff. And I'm like, wow. I said, man, like... And, at that point, I was like, that was a great game. I really liked it. Sucks that I flooded out a little bit or whatever. But, like, good for you, man. You won a multi-5. And just like the sloth meme, okay? The one with the sloth whispering into the lady's ears. He goes, I kept a 0 land hand. And I'm just like, oh, yeah. Yeah, man. Right. So, like, you just needed to draw land so you can use your removal spells. He's like, oh, no, I just had a bunch of, like, 4-drops in my hand, so I drew the lands and the removal spells. Needless to say, a lot of beers were drank that night. A lot of alcohol was consumed.
Always feels good.
Oh, my God.
How bad does it feel to have somebody who multi-5 just chucking cards, discarding them to matches?
Oh, my God.
I don't need cards to beat you.
Oh my God, it was brutal.
What's card advantage?
Exactly.
It was brutal. I never saw Grasp of Darkness that game at all. But anyways, That's what a bad beat is. You get your Tookus beat.
Yeah,
right?
It's one of those things.
And I think that maybe my strategy kind of like didn't help me out there because it was on the downswing. Snake was on the downswing, and Hazard is like really good, right?
I mean,
but I mean that being said, if I change my strategy, like, what do you guys think is the best strategy in Magic? Like, what is the go-to if you want to do good in Magic? What do you think?
we all have preferences, which I think is a big thingy.
That's also true.
So I mean, pretty much all of us, we play what we like.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any best deck. But if you are somebody who's going out there and you want to come first place at the GP,
Yeah.
I think it depends. But
It's not just about deck though. Like the main strategy. Okay, like the strategies are what? Aggro, control, mid-range, tempo is a strategy, right? And combo.
Yes.
Right. So like, which one of those? Yeah, if you want to go out and win, which one of those do you think we should do? You would do.
Okay, so for me, I would say I think the best strategy to win is aggro, and this might be biased because I think that most of the decks I built just fold to aggro. But when your game plan is so like linear and you know exactly what you're doing every game, it doesn't matter what you're sitting across from. Like for example, let's take Modern Burn for example. You're going, especially if you're at a premium event, if you're not like a pro who has 3 buys or something, you don't know what you're going to face in those first 3 rounds.
That's
just
true.
play something that's going to do the same thing every game. You're just going to go turn 1 Goblin Guide, chuck a burn spells, you're going to die unless you do something special, right?
Yeah.
So I think your best chance to win and do well is to just do that. Linear strategy, you have a game plan, don't worry about what your opponent's doing.
I could see that from like a brand new player's perspective. I could 100% see that. And I mean, I've played pretty much exclusively aggro decks forever.
Are you saying that my skill level is the equivalent of a brand new player?
Yes.
Right. Just clarifying.
Maybe your mentality, but Jeff is pretty skilled, man. He's our skillet.
Yeah, especially when he plays Infect. But yeah, I mean,
Daggers on the podcast.
Now I know why you're angry at me. It all makes sense. The flashback.
I don't know. I mean, I like aggro a lot. I mean, I play aggro a lot, but I think to this day, combo is probably the most powerful, annoying thing that there is in Magic, and it keeps getting banned. So I'm gonna go with the best is probably combo.
Right. Well, you're the aggro player, so like, what do you like? How does aggro play? Like, what do you think is like the strong suit of aggro?
The strong suit of aggro is honestly just the toolkit that they have now. So back in the day, aggro was just, I'm gonna attack you and hopefully I have some hate cards in my sideboard for whatever you're doing. But nowadays, aggro has so many tools, like for example, humans. You have hand disruption. You can name cards that your opponents can't cast. You can exile cards from the graveyard. You can exile cards from the board. Like, you have so many things you can do.
Yeah.
From your main board or from your sideboard, and it's part of your main game plan. Like, it's creatures that keep attacking, but at the same time they're also doing all this extra stuff.
So I think that's super interesting because you mentioned that as for a new player, and I think aggro is super appealing for a new player, but also you talk about decks like humans or like spirits. They have a ton of decisions to make. You think about like even rest in peace Affinity, but you think about Affinity and that deck. As a beginner, you can pick it up, you can throw your cards on the table and win. But if you see a player who knows what they're doing, a very seasoned player, the ceiling is really pretty high on most aggro decks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think it's interesting from that perspective where you can actually grow with an aggro deck, pretty far. You can start with it and then just really hone down your skills. But yeah, ton of decisions.
Well, my views on aggro is that it kind of gets a bad rap, right? Aggro is kind of widely seen as like a newbie strategy, right? And I think the reason is people think that is because the fundamentals of an aggro deck line up with the fundamentals of Magic. Play something every turn, use all your mana every turn, make each card count, and use the red zone. Like, those are the fundamentals of Magic in a way, right? Also, deck construction is very important in aggro, right? There's like a fine line. Like, you cannot overload on lands, you cannot overload on removal spells, 3 drops, 4 drops, you actually have to pay attention, right? And I feel like it does get a bad rap because the decisions in aggro, I wouldn't say that they are easier I wouldn't say that they're easier, but they are more important than a lot of strategies.
They're in a different part of the game, essentially, kind of.
Yeah, and an aggro deck has to glean so much information because they're the ones with initiative. They're the ones doing something, right? So they have to predict and make assumptions without waiting for information that many other decks do, right?
Or set up the board in their favor.
Wait, you guys think about what your opponent has when you make plays?
You know what? Maybe I think too much, because when I cast Thoughtseize, it usually takes me 10 minutes to resolve it. So yeah, like I think that it does get a bad rap, and I think its decisions are a little bit more important to the course of the game. The downside, I think, to aggro is that the first few turns matter a lot.
Yes.
Because you're essentially, and this is a quote from Mike, is you're always trying to make your opponent play your game. Right, and if you cannot make them do that in the first few turns, it gets very difficult. Yeah. Right.
I love Mike. You explained to us with some meddling mage stuff against like blue-white control.
Yeah, like forcing certain plays to be made by your opponent based on their mana and what you're gonna name. So like, if they're on turn 3, and you can see that they could possibly either cast Teferi or Path, you can say, you know what, I'm gonna force them to path my creature, so I'm gonna name Teferi. So now they have to play their Path, which means I'm going to get a land ahead. They're going to waste their whole turn just playing a path. And like you can kind of sequence your plays this way.
And the game is so different when you can't make them do that, right? The gameplay is so different, right? So I think that's like a big downside. For me, you know, I think that one of the ones that are up there, not the best, is probably Control, right? I think that strategy, you get so much more information in a Control game than you do with any other deck, to be honest.
That is the most information, yeah. It is the deck that gets the most information and tries to make those plays.
Yeah, so somebody who's played a decent amount of Control, I would say, for sure, like if your opponent sort of hiccups a little bit, if they have a slight stumble, like let's say in Modern, they don't have a turn 2 play. Let's say they have a turn 1 play and they miss their turn 2 play. Like instantly, you're just rewarded for that. Like if you don't have to, you know, immediately answer something, or you get to sculpt your hand differently based on like your opponent kind of tripping up or misplaying their cards, etc. Like you're left with a ton of decisions. So an aggro player we'll say has fewer decisions but more important decisions, whereas a control player I feel has more decisions but they have a little bit of leeway. A lot of their cards do similar things. The
game is kind of naturally going their way. Like they want to get to turn 10. They want to make land drops, so the game is naturally going their way. So I agree with your point on their decisions.
Yeah, they want to exhaust the opponent's resource while they're getting their resources ahead.
Every turn you're not dead, you're winning. Yeah, kind of, right? That's the way I think of it a lot of times. You're like, okay, I'm not dead yet. Okay, I'm not like super far behind. I can like this is great for me. Like we're getting to turn 4, turn 5. This is where I start to build up, right?
Especially when you take all the turns.
Yeah. We'll get into combo soon, Mike. Okay, relax.
he wants to talk about combo.
Technically, it's Control.
Yeah, I can see the vein coming. He wants to talk about combo.
Technically, it's Control. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. But for Control, so my perspective is that when you're playing like 8 to 9 rounds and you're going the distance every single time, there is a mental fatigue, which is why I think to be good at Control, you really need to be a master of Control.
Right, you need to put in the hours.
Yeah, you need to put in the hours, which is why I didn't suggest it as what I think is the best. But I mean, if you're a good Control player, I can see kind of where you're coming from.
Well, like I said, I don't think it's the best. I think it's up there though. I think it's one of the best.
Okay, fair enough.
As someone who beats down on Control decks, like what do you think, Mike? Do you think that it has a glaring weakness? Do you think it has a very strong strength?
I mean, it's good as long as your opponent's not really doing much. Like if your opponent's going fast, you are probably gonna lose.
Right.
Like if you look at humans, for example, if they're going turn 1 champion, turn 2 champion, you're sitting there going, I am probably going to die.
Yeah.
But
no, that's right.
Like that's the thing. If you have the right answers, you're good.
Yeah, and that plays into what Jeff said, right? Like if your opponent stumbles a little bit, then you're automatically rewarded.
You're so far ahead of your opponent stumbles. Yeah. As a Control player, you just get rewarded for any mistake your opponent makes.
Yeah, and I feel...
Just for your deck structure, though.
Right, just for the deck structure. You know, and I feel like there is one other downside to Control decks, and that's the power level has to be there in where you need it. Sweepers, you need to have sweepers that actually sweep, right? Card draw, you need to have, I wouldn't say efficient, but card draw that gets you ahead. Because they're
redundant.
And redundant card draw. Like, they're like, you never really see Council of the Soratami or whatever, the draw 3... Sorry, that's from my Kamigawa days.
Look at my vocabulary. That's why I'm on.
So divination. You never see like divination, right? 3 mana sorcery draw 2 cards. Rarely, because the power level needs to be there. Yeah. So if the power level's not there, it's really hard to make a Control deck go. However, an aggro deck, for example, just attack with 2/2s. You don't of course you need good aggro deck cards, but an aggro strategy leans on attacking with low drops basically, right? Not so much as having the powerful cards to win. And one more example I want to give on this is that I played during the Elixir of Immortality control days. No win con. They had no win condition. The whole strategy was to control the game and then make your opponent concede.
Essentially.
Right?
Or post-board, I think there was a win con, right? There was like Archangel Thune and Nyx Fleece Rams.
Yeah, when they try to kind of like get you to to react to what they're doing. But
there's like one Elspeth in the sideboard.
Yeah, but even though that won some games, I don't think it won a tournament, but it won some games.
It won the Pro Tour.
Oh, that's right, it did win the Pro Tour, right?
Canadian.
Even though it won the Pro Tour, I think that was a very bad strategy, and the only reason that it won was because there wasn't really a good way to attack it.
Yeah, it was inevitable wins. So you can just be like, I'm just gonna play game 1. You're not gonna get to game 2, and I'm just gonna win.
Yeah, and this is where mid-range decks they come in.
Yeah.
And you know they're my bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
They come in and they try to be like, yeah, you have more powerful cards than the aggro decks, but I got planeswalkers too. I got like huge removal spells too, right? So you better be ready to like swing with me. But funny enough, here's my hot take. I don't think mid-range decks are the best deck. I know, crazy. I think they're very good because they have that audible into what you need to do, right? And I think that they are some of the most fun because you're playing bombs. You're playing removal and bombs, right?
And money.
And money, right? Yes.
Putting those bills on the table as you're playing.
Yeah. And actually, you get to use the wide breadth of everything because aggro decks, you don't really want to play kind of heavy sorceries and stuff. Control decks, you don't want to play aggro cards. But mid-range, you can do either, right? Like you can play a heavy planeswalker, a huge sorcery at the end of your game, like Rakdos' Return, or you can play some aggro cards at the beginning to stumble your opponent, right? The downside to mid-range is the draw the wrong half of your deck problem, right? Mid-range I see as the white knight who's like, well, if you played fair and attacked me with creatures, you wouldn't win. But why would they do that?
I think I've heard you say that before in a non-sarcastic way. Yeah.
If we measured card to card, I would win. But that's not how Magic goes. That's not how you play games. That's not how you
pull
win
out your wallet.
Right?
Pull out your wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
My sticker.
So that's not how it goes, right? Like you have to be able to audible into things that your opponent are doing that are outside of attacking with creatures or using control spells, which mid-range is good for, right? And if you draw the wrong half of your deck, you go down to 48%. If you draw the right half, you only go up to 52%. Right?
I love mid-range strategies. I would never play them, but I love to see because it's just in essence what Magic I feel is meant to be. Right? You play creatures, you play removal, and you just slug it out. Right?
Yeah.
But what I love about mid-range is that it sort of plays this game where it's just like sort of getting a little bit of advantage every time. Tons of decisions. You're rewarded for making good decisions. You know, you make a bad decision, you lose. Whatever. Okay, big price. A pretty hefty price to pay, but it's.
I have a feeling Mike doesn't share the. Oh yeah, okay. When he loses.
yeah. But like you think about like cards like Kolaghan's Command and like Liliana, which are like they slowly build you advantage, and you over the long run grind them out.
Yeah.
You see like a control deck, and so they do get punished because of the card selection. So like if you're stuck with cards like Fatal Push or something, you're just not able to extract your value out. Whereas like a control deck, let's say you're playing against a creatureless deck and you have a bunch of paths. Like, okay, I have these mass draw spells. I'm just going to see so many cards that this path isn't going to matter. Yeah. Whereas the mid-range deck is just trying to piece together every little bit of efficiency, trying to 2-for-1 wherever they can. Yeah. But they have to be allowed to 2-for-1.
Right.
To actually gain that value. Whereas,
they have to be allowed to put the pieces of their little card advantage engine together, right?
Yeah. Whereas like the control deck where it's like, oh, you played Caverns of Souls, it's okay, I'm still gonna get a ton of value out of this cryptic command.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be able to tap your team, like tap your team again until you overextend and then board wipe you, and then you know all of these counter spells that don't do anything, I've made up for them because I've just 6-for-1 you with my Supreme Break.
Right. You know? That's alright. Yeah. Mike, facing at mid range, like easy, difficult? What do you think? Depends on the deck or the player?
It depends on the meta game.
Ooh, good answer,
I mean, the reason for that is because I used to play green-white hate pairs. And back in that day, mid-range was my bread and butter. Please Inquisition me.
Locks it on Smiter or Wilt Leaf? Which one do you want?
You want to play Liliana for 0? Please.
Do it on turn 0, please. Just plus. But yeah, like, based on the metagame. Like, if the metagame is big on green-black, I'm switching back to that deck and never looking back because it's just so much fun.
Well, like, mid-ranges are so good when there's not a super diverse meta. Like, you can plan for a control deck, you can plan for a combo deck, but you can't plan for like 30 different... It's so hard to have something all-encompassing.
If mid-range is good, then that means that the format is kind of solved, and they have solved it in the mid-range deck. And then other people are trying to beat the mid-range deck and what has been solved.
That's a very good take on it. I mean, it is an indicator. The aggro decks come out first, then the control decks, and then you build your mid-range decks, right? So that's a very good point, Mike.
No, that makes a ton of sense.
Now, there's one here that I know is near and dear to Jeff's heart, but my hot take is I think that this strategy is actually the best strategy in Magic, and that is tempo. Tell the folks what tempo is, Jeff.
Oh, okay. I love tempo, and honestly, there's one card that just defines tempo, and it's Delver of Secrets.
Oh yeah.
This like, I don't need to. I will explain anyways because I like to hear myself talk. But
nice.
Delver of Secrets is a tempo card. So what you're looking to do, it's kind of like it can shift between an aggro deck and a control deck. So it plays these very efficient cards. So generally 1 and 2 mana cards. You know, you'll see a couple copies of 3 or 4 mana cards if they're very powerful. But you're looking to get an early threat out. So a card like Delver of Secrets, a card like Young Pyromancer, things that can take over the game if unchecked. Right?
Yeah.
It can just kill you really fast. Nimble Mongoose. And then the rest of the deck is designed to cheaply answer your threats or defend their threats.
Right.
So it's got a mix of control cards and and aggro cards, sort of for all scenarios. But the in essence of it is it's not about card advantage. We talked about control decks having mass draw. We talked about mid-range decks getting this incremental value.
Yeah.
Tempo decks are sort of sacrificing that for...
But what are they getting, Jeff? Tell
them
the
what
people.
They win! The game. Yeah, they win the game.
They win the game. Episode done.
Yeah. So if you think about Magic, and this took me a long time from when I started the game to, become like an intermediate player, which I kind of am, not to brag.
Yeah, you're the most intermediate I've ever seen.
Medium of the group.
Yeah. Every time I go above that line, I gotta build a shitty deck to bring myself a little bit forward. But so Vapor Snag is a great example of this card. So it's a 1 mana bounce spell, you lose 1 life. But if you think about it, I'm using a 1 mana spell and I'm bouncing your 3-drop. Wow. Now all of a sudden you're up on 2 mana. So you've answered their 3 mana spell with your 1 mana spell. Same thing with Spell Pierce. Are you gonna try to cast Cryptic Command? I'm gonna count it for 1 mana. So now you're just being efficient. So you don't care so much about the value of your card and the power level of your card. You just feel like you're just trying to get through that hump, right? You're just trying to answer your opponent's things the most efficient way possible. So,
right.
And you're able to shift your strategy because of that.
Right. So like, how does Flash fit into all that? Because it took a long time for me to figure out why I lose to tempo decks. It's not immediately obvious, which I think is in a competitive game, beating your opponent in a way that they don't know how you're beating them is very important. Same as in war or fighting or any competition, right? Like, you want to beat your opponent without them knowing that what you're doing. And my first level up moment really was figuring out, like, oh, this guy's being way more efficient on his turns, on their mana than I am, and that's why I'm losing. Not because I can slam these bombs, it's because that they're up 4 mana in the history of the game, of our match. They're up 4 mana, and I'm like behind them in that sense, right? So how does Flash fit into that strategy? Like, there's a lot of Flash cards and instants in tempo decks.
Yeah, so it's essentially you're at the end of the day, you're like a chameleon, right? You can play whatever game you want. So when all of your cards are instant or Flash, you never know what's coming. So that is a huge value to have. So let's say, for example, I played a lot of fairies, and Spellstutter Sprite is just the best card ever. It is so gorgeous. If you've never played it with Spellstutter Sprite, please do yourself a favor. Go to hairytarantula.com or just kidding. We have no sponsor. Don't go there. Don't go there. Come find me. I'll let you board them.
I'll send the PayPal later.
Yeah, but go buy 4 copies of Spellstutter Sprite, and because that card is flash, it counter spells, whatever. So let's say I'm playing that, and I also play a Remand, which is a very high tempo card in the right meta. Now all of a sudden, I have options. So if my opponent casts something that I can counter with Spellstutter Sprite, great, I get a creature. If they counter something higher CMC that I can't, I can Remand it. And then if they do nothing because they're trying to play around, they don't know what I have and they're trying to play around it. They said, I can't lose this threat. I can't get the spell pierced on this. So they're like, okay, I'm going to cast something else. Then I get to opt. I get to shape my hand. Or I get to develop a flash threat. Or whatever. And it's so hard to know what they're doing or what their hand looks like. Yeah. That's what I find the most difficult about playing against a tempo.
And they're being efficient plus having all the options.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like a win-win. And you, as you said, you're sacrificing card advantage. And also, I would say you're sacrificing card quality. Because a lot of the spells that you play are like Vapor Snag. Like, things that by themselves seem like they don't do much, right? But you get tempo. Like, you get the thing that helps you win, right?
And everyone knows this feeling. I've just played a little bit of Magic or at least a little bit of Modern. Like when your opponent has Cryptic mana up and you're like, well, I'm not going to cast this. Pass turn, and they go Bolt Snap Bolt. Yeah. And you're like, I wish they Cryptic Command my spell. And
just now, Cryptic Command
I've taken 6 and they have a 2/1 now. This is great. And the next turn I have to play around this Cryptic Command again because I did it for the first time. Yeah. Right?
You got any feelings about tempo, Mike?
I mean, based on talking about efficiency, does that mean that Burn is the most tempo deck?
I mean, that's a very good point of view, right? Like, think about it.
Burn doesn't interact the way a tempo deck interacts.
Right.
But it is very efficient.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you mean. Like, tempo is pretty fun. Like, you can mix tempo into other strategies too. Like, you can put it into creature decks. Like, for example, Spirits is essentially a tempo creature deck. Because you're flashing almost everything in, or you're trying to flash everything in.
Yeah. And your threats are, what was that? Is that God?
Like, yeah, your threats are like 2.
Who's talking shit about tempo?
But yeah, like, I think tempo is a fine strategy. The only downside, I mean, this is the part that I don't like about tempo, is the card, like, quality is usually lower.
It's low, yeah.
Which makes it less fun for me. Sometimes it's just fun to play a 4/4 for a 3-mana.
Play good cards, right? Sometimes it's just fun to play good cards.
Seriously, we're talking about Spirits, and then we hear all this stuff.
We
have to bust out the Ouija board.
I know. Yeah, like my views on tempo and why I think they're good, it's the best strategy, are a couple of reasons. One of the chief ones being is it doesn't lean too hard on card quality, right? Where in Control you need to have good, powerful cards. Tempo is similar to Aggro in that way, where you need tempo cards. You need 1 and 2 mana spells. You need 1 or 2 mana threats that can go all the way, right? And other than that, like, you're just playing good flash cards. You're just out efficiency your opponent and stuff like that. And the other good thing is that you're never gonna get judged for a tempo deck because it's fun and everybody likes it. Like, Delver is Bay. Everybody likes Bay. Even people who play against Delver, they think that's cool. Like the 1 mana spell that flips over and then you protect it and stuff like that.
What? No, you're wrong. You're wrong for doing that, because look at it this way. Like, remember that mono blue deck that won the Pro Tour? That they won the deck with? Like, that deck is beautiful.
Oh, you mean the standard deck?
The standard
creature flash
deck.
When I saw it, I was like, wow,
it's a pretty good
wicked, a kitchen table deck. This is awesome.
100%. It's a bunch of junk cards, but the way you play them and the way you maneuver them, and like, you can play this super aggressive, I can get that Curious Obsession and draw a ton of cards and get out early, and or I can play this slower game and try to find a spot where I can play my Jin, or if you misstep, then I'm going to punish you for it. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, as I was saying, a few minutes ago, like, you beat a lot of your opponents by them not knowing how you're beating it. You have to reach a certain level to understand why you're losing to a tempo deck, right? But there is one more strategy. There's one more strategy that I think can be the best, and this is the one that Mike alluded to earlier, and that is
combo,
Le Combo.
That strategy is the stupidest strategy ever.
Why? Preach for us.
Just because you can win out of nowhere. Like, you can be losing the whole match and just be like, wow, I win.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's like when people go turn 3 Tron and then just slam card and just like... Or the old Splinter Twin combo. It was so oppressive because you could just go like on your end.
Tempo and combo mixed together.
Just tap your last land down. You're now open. I'll just Splinter Twin and kill you.
Yeah.
The worst is like when you lose on them mulliganing hard. Like when they mulligan to 3 or 4 or 5, and you're like, all right, I have 7 cards. I am so far ahead, and then they're like, by the way, you're dead on turn 3.
Yeah. No, that ain't that for true.
It's
that for true.
So oppressive, and it's so like...
Leave it.
it's when we talk about bad beats, like those are the ones that stick with you the most.
Yeah,
the ones where you just.
And the worst part of it is it can slot into any kind of strategy. You can jam it into a control deck. You can jam it into just a creature deck. You can jam it into like any kind of deck you want.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's I don't know, and it's always get banned. That's the one thing that every time gets banned.
I'll meet you in the back.
Yeah, right.
It's always the combo decks. It's never like the fair stuff. It's the combo stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll let Jeff have his piece on it because I rarely play combo. Like,
so combo decks, everyone loves to shit on them because they're like, "Oh, it takes no skill. You just play these 2 cards and you win the game." Okay.
Hey man, this is an inclusive podcast. Yes. Don't mock everybody.
No, I'm sorry, not everybody. Just people who hate combo decks. You know what? You're dead to me. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, you always remember that. Okay, they just had it or whatever. But when you sit down and play a combo deck, you sort of see that it is a lot about maneuvering your cards, trying to survive long enough. Tempo them in certain cases. Try to figure out what balance your options. Like what's my highest likelihood to assemble the combo? Do I have more time or less time? Do I have to try to force the issue now?
Yeah.
Or in three turns when they've drawn 3 more cards, does this get better for me? What am I looking for, etc. So I think combo decks are very powerful, but for one, they can get hated out really, really easily.
I hate losing to combo decks. Where's my cuddly dog? Jack, come over here. I need help. I'm losing to combo decks. Come here, buddy. Come here.
Oh,
come on. Yeah, go. Like it's a bad feeling when you lose to combo decks because you feel like they're not doing anything, and then how can you lose to that? Right?
Yeah.
It's just
like they're playing
feeling.
Seer Visions and Opt, and you're like, oh wow, you're not doing anything. I'm getting so far ahead on the board, and like you're taught to fight for board position, and they don't care. I mean, like, oh okay, yeah, nice. You have a bunch of 6/6s. I'll play this 1/4 untap and then kill you.
Yeah, but you're talking about the blue decks. I'm talking about, like, for example, the Malira decks.
Oh, okay.
Or like the infinite mana Walking Ballista, shoot you for infinite. By the way, I'm all to 4 to do this.
Okay, in all fairness, I think that's one of the big issues with the combo archetype is that there's, especially in more eternal formats, specifically modern, but there's so many combo decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many different types of combo decks.
It's so easy to do it now. You can slot a combo into almost every deck now.
Yeah, like you can play Thopter Fact. I was gonna say KCI, but that's
rest in peace.
Well, you know what? Before we get too far ahead, I actually think that it's such a good thing. I think that Magic is a better game if you have strategies that can also include a combo aspect, right? Mid-range combos a little bit of card advantage, right? Because they're comboing like a couple of pieces to make a card advantage edge. It could be removal spells with something else or whatever. Control combos like Teferi with Denial. Like you combine cards in many ways, and I think that's a beautiful aspect of the game. Just combo strategies. They take that combination aspect and they just blow it up to the extreme. Right? So much so that sometimes if you don't get there as the combo deck, you didn't play a game of Magic.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't do anything.
You mean like the Grizzlebrand deck, for example? That's literally just a combo deck?
the evolution one, right? Yeah. Oh, man.
Neoform.
I've lost on turn 0 multiple times.
Yeah, and then your opponent's like, oh, I didn't win. And then they're just like, pass.
Oh, you had Force of Negation?
Yeah.
Next game.
So, like, if you don't get there with those extreme combos, like, you just didn't play a game of Magic. And I think to highlight what it means to play a game of Magic is interaction. All the decks that we kind of love interact in some way. Right?
Well, I think to what you're saying, I think there's a difference between combo and synergy, right? Like, like you're talking about these mid-range combo decks, but they're more like just highly synergistic decks. When I think combo decks, I think like going infinite and just assembling these kind of oppressive combination of cards, and that's why we see all these cards being banned. Because they're also, whether they're too powerful or not, they're just unfun. And then you start to get these people who like hate, like let's say you hate KCI. There are people playing like 4 Stony Silence in their sideboard because they're just like, I want to murder this deck,
and it's still not enough.
And it's still not
It's only 4 cards, bro. You need at least 12.
So, like, when we talk about best deck, and, like, I generally don't want to take a combo deck into a tournament unless you're really something new that some people are not prepared for.
Well, I agree with you on that point. I feel, when I said I think that combo decks can be the best deck, if you can craft a combo that is like a scalpel to attack a format, and you just insert it deep inside the meta, you can win a tournament, right? You can win a tournament. Yeah. Maybe that's because people are not ready with sideboard cards, or the strategies that they're using. Yeah. Yours is better than theirs, right? But I think that's the other downside, right? The downside is like you cannot be like, I want to be a combo player, but that just means you're just playing the next combo, the next combo, the next combo, the next combo. Yeah. Where a mid-range deck, you're playing the mid-range strategy all the time. Like you're playing mid-range, right? So I think that combo also suffers from one more thing, and that is 100% if the cards are not there, you're not doing it. You can't even make it work if you don't have, and actually in this day and age, is if you don't have infinite combos, right? Yeah. It's not just like boom, boom, lock you out. It's more like boom, boom, go infinite. If you don't go infinite with your boom booms,
or almost
or
kind of infinite.
Yeah,
don't boom
virtually infinite.
Don't boom if you're not trying to boom boom.
Exactly. Don't boom if you're not boom booming an infinite amount of times. That's you want to boom boom 10 hours. 10 hours boom boom on YouTube is what you're doing, right?
But what I think is interesting about all these strategies that you can sort of combine them. You can find a home. If you feel like you like two things, you can merge them together. I do a lot of combo control decks, or tempo combo decks and stuff like that. There's something for everyone in this game.
The combo is always turns, by the way.
Yeah. In your case, yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, as Mike said earlier, like it's a lot of it's personal preference, right? Yeah. Like, let's just look at what we said. The mid-range player, his hot take is that tempo is the best, right? The tempo player, his hot take is that aggro is the best. The aggro player, his hot take is that combo is the best, right? So it's mostly personal preference, and we've seen countless amounts of fun being had just by playing what you want to play.
Play what you want.
Right? Play what you want, girl. Yeah. Play what you want.
You're not going to win anyway. You're garbage at the game. Okay? If you're watching this podcast, you're not winning tournaments.
Well,
just kidding. I love everybody.
Yeah. Well, and the good thing about having all these types of strategies and thinking that something is the best, trying it out or trying what you like, is that you get out of your comfort zone, and I think that's very important.
Right? So it's all about exactly. It's about diversifying, and I'll start with a little story here. I'll tell you something about when I came back to Magic in Theros. I was playing the Simic Flash deck. I had $100. I went to the store and said, "What can I get for this?" And I'm like, "All right, we can build you this jank deck." Oh, say no more. Take my money. So I was playing this Flash deck, and it was just like a bunch of crappy Flash creatures, whatever. And then this was around the time we was playing Mono Black and Mono Blue was around. And there was this blue-white control deck, sometimes played as Esper, that played Supreme Verdict, and they had
Strings of Revelation.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, baby.
And Jace, Architect of Thought, I would say.
Yeah, Jace.
Architect of Thought, yeah, that was the one.
I remember that.
So they had all sorts of sweet cards. And it was gaining popularity. This deck I could never beat. I felt like no matter what I did, like, the Mono Black was on the same power level, but I could beat that deck. Yeah. This deck I just couldn't beat. And I was just like, what is it? Like, I play a ton of creatures out, they sweep me. I don't play enough creatures out, they Sphinx's Rev and negate all my damage. Like, what do I do here, right? And for the longest time, I just accepted it's broken.
Deck's broke.
Deck's broken. This random guy is not beating me because he's better than me.
Yeah,
it's because he has powerful and more expensive cards.
That's dangerous. That's dangerous thinking.
That's what I used to think like when I was just starting the game. Right, that's natural. And then so I was like, I'm gonna accumulate these cards. So I got all the cards and I played the deck, and I couldn't fucking win. I just lost. They're just like, I'm playing against somebody. They go like, Pack Rat, you lose. I'm like, God damn it.
All right. At this point, I just want to say it's probably because you suck. Yeah, but I mean, that's just a friend.
Little bit.
I appreciate your honesty. Please agree in the comments below. But then, when I switched decks and the format rotated, I knew how to combat control decks because I tried it. Right. So we talk about getting out of your comfort zone. There's all these different archetypes, and if you try something new, you'll surprise yourself. Right. So last week we talked about I issued you guys a challenge to take a cold shower.
I hate you, man. I dislike you.
So did you guys try it?
Yes, I took 2 cold showers, and I said to myself, no more. The thing for me about like the cold showers is and this plays into what you're saying, is that you surprise yourself because you think, like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. But once you can do it, your perspective changes. And I think that's an important thing to highlight. Like, getting out of your comfort zone changes your perspective, right? Because, you know, when I took the first cold shower, it kind of sucked, but then I was like, this is kind of like more refreshing than taking a hot shower. Then the second one was like, yeah, my skin feels like better, you know, like, but it's like a different perspective.
It's the baby oil,
right? But then hey, we don't talk about baby oil on this podcast.
Don't out his secrets in front of all 7 viewers, man.
So I was like, yeah, you know, this could be another way to do things. However, I never got around to the third one because I didn't want to wake up and salsa dance in the shower as the cold water went on my back, right? Yeah, Mike, how many did you take?
0. I've done them before for like days in a row, just because I had to. And
right.
No, I'd rather just, you know, have a normal hot shower.
Right. But okay, in that case, your perspective changed on the hot shower, right? Like,
I mean, my perspective has always been like, hot showers are probably better when you're going to bed. Cold showers are better in the morning. That has always been how I viewed it.
mm-hmm.
It's just I prefer to have hot showers.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's just less effort.
Yeah. And at least like you tried it, so you can say that, you know what, I prefer it.
This is not for me.
Yeah.
You know what, a lot of times what happens is that people, they haven't gone out of their comfort zone, so when people confront them about something that they do, it's hard for them to defend it.
It's true.
90% of the time, the correct answer is like, I prefer it. I like to do this. I don't want to do this, right? But unless you've tried it yourself, you don't truly believe if you prefer it or not.
You can't know for sure unless you've tried it. It's true.
So I appreciate that you did the one and done and not the
two and
the one and done. You did he did the 2 and see you.
2 and see you, yeah.
So at least you didn't do one and done. But it's not really about the act of taking a cold shower. Like whatever that does, a little bit of like helps your circulation, that 0.1%. Like it's not about that. It's about putting yourself in a mental position where you're like, okay, this is something that I don't want to do, but it's going to benefit me. It's going to be good for me in the long run, right? Like it's going to help me build discipline. It's going to I'm going to challenge myself. And it's funny, like you talk about like building confidence and building, you know, security, and it's about taking yourself outside of your box and doing what you need to do, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people in general suffer from right now. I know I did, and I'm trying to get out of that. And I've had all these bad habits for, you know, the first 25 years of my life, and when you do something the same way, and you're not getting satisfaction, you need to find a way to break that mold, right? So like little exercises like this, I think, are incredibly valuable. You talked a little bit about, I didn't even try it or something. So if you think about when you're a kid and your parents are like, oh, just try this fish or something. I don't like it.
Yeah.
You never tried it. I don't like it. I don't like it.
And it's so funny to think that like you're saying what you said when you were 3 years old, right? Like,
hell yeah.
That like those are like the late night think tank sessions that you have on your bed when you can't sleep at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
You think back and be like, oh my god.
It's the hot shower thoughts.
Yeah. The hot shower thoughts.
Wow, way to rub that in.
Yeah, whatever. If you do all your thinking in a hot shower, you do that. Honestly, I'm not going to continue doing cold showers. It was challenging, but and again, like the actual act doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it puts you in that mental state, right? Like and I'm not going to say that it changed my life for doing it for a week, but you know, you feel like I was more efficient. There was a few habits that I wanted to kick. And, you know, when you come out of a cold shower, you feel good when you come out. Like when you're in there, it's torture. You come out, you feel nice, you get the warm air. Whereas when you're in a hot shower, you come out, you're like, oh, dry off, get me out of here, right? Like, so you're sort of fired up when you come out of it. You feel refreshed, and you don't want to go and do something that's bad for you, right? Like, I would do a lot of late night video gaming, and when I was taking cold showers, I just would come out and be like, you know what? I'm gonna read a book. You know, I'm gonna continue this.
There you go. Cold showers make you smarter. Yeah. Right from dress mouth.
That's why he's never going to do them again.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like, you know, you get in these habits unless you force yourself out of them with some sort of shock or whatever. And it's this sort of idea of being comfortable with discomfort and constantly challenging yourself and constantly growing. And it's also about being adaptable, right? So ever changing. Look at COVID right now. Like, this is something that nobody could have seen coming. It just randomly came up, and the people that are thriving are people that are adapting.
Right. And that's because they're able to work and do things out of their comfort zone and stuff, right?
Like especially businesses. Like there's businesses out there that are trying to figure out creative ways.
Like restaurants, for example, they're the biggest. Like, they're doing all these changes to how they, handle business. They've taken on more online orders. They're doing more patio orders.
Right.
Yeah, and like the businesses that are doing that, they're getting by, and then there's other businesses that they only know how to do the one thing. They're not willing to maybe accept new technologies or whatever, and you're just sort of gimping yourself at that point, right? It's like playing a 5-mana take an extra turn. Like, why would you do that? And I think we are all on the same page. We have a lot of in-depth discussions about these kind of topics. Challenging ourselves and stuff.
For me, like, it's really cool that you brought up the whole thing about the comfort zone. Comfort zone kills two things, right? Your adaptability and your belief, right? You need to believe in yourself that you can do something. But the only way to do it is to believe in yourself, is to prove that you can do it, right? And I feel like this day and age, somewhere along the line, we get taught that stay in your comfort zone, stay in line, right?
Yeah.
But you don't get anywhere staying in line. That's just the truth, right? Like you have to. The normal should be that you're trying something new. The normal should be that you are facing challenges constantly.
Yeah, that you're never comfortable where you are.
Yeah,
that you're always reaching for new heights.
Yeah, the fact that we have a comfort zone just proves that it's a bad thing. Because it's saying there's a normal life and a not normal life. But that's not how it works. Yeah. That's not how... You're always facing challenges. Like, I don't want to get too deep into this. The conversation's getting pretty heavy. But at the end of the day, like, if you want to believe in yourself and you want to be somebody who can take on anything, like, do some shit you don't like, right?
Well, like, and honestly, like, you see your friends or you see people that are sort of doing it and you get inspired. Like, for example, and Mike, I'll let you talk on this because you started a new job recently, and I know for a long time you were saying, I want to leave this job that I'm at, I want to leave this job that I'm at, and then I was talking to you just kind of like, through COVID, you just kind of check up on people, and you're just going through these every night, you're getting new skills, and you're like helping to improve what you knew, new softwares, because you're a programming guy.
Yeah.
And like, how did that help you from going from like, the normal is like coming home from work, playing video games, to like pushing yourself outside of that, and now you're reaping the rewards, right?
I mean, just the fact of like changing how I looked at practice. That was the biggest thing. I started practicing for fun. And like when I realized that I was enjoying it, that I was enjoying just doing something else, something new, not like video games, which obviously they're fun at the moment, but like 3 hours later you're like, man, I've just wasted 3 hours. But when you're doing something code related, you solve a problem and you're like, man, I just did something. I can quantify it.
Yeah.
So it feels really good, and it's basically based on that. I just kept building on it. Yeah.
I mean, once you start taking on challenges, you can just ride that wave, right?
Like small challenges, even like, I don't know, reading a book. Finishing a book is a challenge. If you finish reading that book, you feel rewarded at the end because you're like, you feel good about the story, maybe, like if you like the story, but at the same time you've also finished that book.
Right.
Yeah. So one last thing on this, which I'm actually forgetting now. That sucks.
Well, that's because Mike is kind of flashing his huge work ethic in your face. He just like smacking you with it.
Well, now I remember. Yeah, you said Mike and huge. I was like, oh yeah, gotta work out every day. Get full. No, but like the learning doesn't stop like after school, and I think that's something that people get stuck in. Like for me especially, like, you go to school, you learn those skills, then you adapt it to work, and then you do that for 35 years. But learning is a constant.
Like learning is that part of life that proves that there shouldn't really be a comfort zone, right? And the reason we don't like to continue learning is school was shit, so we don't believe we can have fun practicing. We don't believe that we can like improve ourselves just by learning new things, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it is like, it's that. Yeah, you're right. It's mostly just what you have believed for years or what you've gotten used to doing every day. And
right.
And one last.
Are you sure, man? Because I feel like we're gonna get hit 2 hours.
I know. But just because it happened today, like when we were setting up, and you said, you know what? Like I didn't realize how fun content creation is.
Yeah.
Like we had talked about like podcasts and you filming ourselves playing.
I would have done this like years ago.
I'll just talk about filming myself, but Anyway.
Hey, I'm still waiting for those videos. You promised this. You promised for my birthday.
Yeah, I have to turn the red color down on my monitor, right? Is that what you said? So yeah, I think we should probably call it here. Mike, you're bringing in the topic for next week. So what are we talking about?
So I guess next week we're going to talk about cheating, or basically, what's the line between cheating and being a fair player?
Oh, hot damn! Player. That's a good one. I can't wait for the comments on that one. I guess in the meantime, guys, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed hanging out with us. Mm-hmm. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, or just honestly just share, because we're trying to make a community here. Like I would much rather more people watch our stuff than just try to get as many likes as possible. So without further ado, goodbye.